Okay, here we have a problem dealing with simple interest that's occurring in multiple accounts. So let's see what we're working with here. A person had $18,000 invested in two accounts, one paying 7% simple interest and the other paying 8% simple interest. How much was invested in each account if the interest after 1 year is $1,436? Okay, so this 1436, we're calling this capital I. Capital I stands for, in this chapter, capital I stands for the total amount of interest in dollars, not as a percentage. Okay, so we have a formula for this. We have, let me go to the next slide. Total interest, and that's this guy here. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Time is measured in years, and since we're working with, oh, can't overlap those. Since we're working with 1 year, that means time is equal to 1. So the total amount of interest for 1 year should be principal times rate times 1, because 1 is the time. Okay, so now the question is, how much was invested in each account? Well, let's think about what's actually happening here. I'm going to go to the next slide. We need to determine how much, the question here, I'll use blue for the question, how much was invested in each account? This is what we're trying to figure out, right? So part of the 18,000 is in the 7% account. Part of the 18,000 is in the 8% account. Now, it could be 9,000 and 9,000, 10,000 and 8,000. It could be 17,000 and one and 1,000 and another. Somehow the 18,000 is split two ways. We just don't know how it's split. Let me go back to the last slide. So it looks like the situation we're dealing with is this 18,000 is going to the 7% account and the 8% account. All right, so now if we're gonna use, so we know these are numbers, right? The amount of money, the number of dollars in one account, number of dollars in the second account. If we're going to use those numbers before we actually know what they are, well, again, this is algebra. Algebra is just simply using symbols to represent unknown numbers. And we know they're numbers because it's dollars are numerical values. So now, before we go further, we need to express the amount of money in the 7% account symbolically and the amount of money in the 8% account symbolically. So it doesn't matter which one. I'm going to pick the 7% account because that one comes first on my list and it's first in the question. I'm going to say this is X number of dollars. Now, how would you calculate the amount in the second account? Well, it's the 18,000 and then take away all the money that was already invested. So subtract off the money in the 7% account. So that looks like X dollars here and the rest is down here. So we have X dollars in the 7% account and the rest, the 18,000 minus the X in the 8% account. All right, so now we know, and I'm going to go into the last slide here, we know that if we take the interest from the first account and we add that to the interest from the second account, that should give us what we're looking for. Well, not what we're looking for, but that should give us the total interest, and that's the 1436. So that's this guy here. So now that 1436 is interest that's coming, that's the combined interest that's coming from both accounts. All right, so let's see. At this point, we could translate this directly into a mathematical equation using the formula I equals P times R times T. In this case, T is 1, time is 1, so just interest is principal times rate. Basically, 7% of the total amount invested is the interest coming from the first account, and 8% of the total amount invested is coming from the second account. So let's put this into a formula. So the total interest we know, that's the 1436. And that should equal the interest coming from the 7% account. So that's 7% of X dollars. We don't know what X is yet, but we know it's a number. So we'll say 7%, so that's 0.07 of is time, so 7% times X, plus 8% of the money in this account. So that's 8% of is times the amount in the 8% account. That's 18,000 minus the X. Okay, so we got total interest 1436 equals interest from the first account, which is here, plus interest from the second account, which is here, and they're both coming from this formula. Technically, I equals PRT, but T is equal to 1, so it's just principal times rate. Okay, and we could solve this for X. So let's say 1436 should equal 0.07x plus, now we could distribute this 0.08 to both terms inside the parentheses. So if you pop that into the calculator, 0.08 times 18,000 should give you 1440. And then 0.08 times the negative x, we'll have a negative 0.01x. Okay, so now we have a algebraic equation, solve for x. We got 1436 is equal to, well, we have like terms here. The 0.07 x's and the negative 0.0, oh, that should be 0.08, not 0.01. Minus the 0.08 x's, that will give us a total of negative 0.01x. Subtract 1440 from both sides to bring it over to the left. So we want to isolate the variable. So we want to remove all the numbers on the right hand side. If we subtract 1440 from both sides, it looks like we have negative 4 on the left and a negative 0.01 times x on the right. At this point, divide both sides by negative 0.01, and if you pop that into the calculator, you should get 400. So negative 4 divide by negative 0.01 equals. All right, so there's our x is equal to 400 bucks. And that's that x. We defined what x stood for before we started the problem. We ended up with x is 400. Going back to the beginning, amount in 7% account is 400. Okay, so that means 7% account is 400 bucks, and the rest is going in the 8% account. And the rest is, let's use yellow for the rest. This is the rest. 18,000 minus whatever was used in the 7% account. In this case, is 400 bucks. So 18,000 minus 400, or if you could pop that into the calculator, you should get $17,600. Okay, so these two numbers add up to 18,000. It looks good to me. Let's just double check. Make sure we're right. So 7% of the 400 bucks. That's interest coming from the first account. 8% of the $17,600. Okay, so first one, 7% of 400. We could put that into the calculator. You should get 28, I believe, 0.07 times 400. Yep, 28 bucks. So $28 in interest coming from the first account and 8% of the 17,600. This should give us 1408. Hopefully, yeah, 1408. So interest coming from the first account is 28 bucks. Interest coming from the second account, 1,408 bucks. And when you add these two numbers together, you get exactly what you're supposed to get. You get the 1436. So this one checks out. Looks good. Okay, hopefully this was helpful. As always, if you have any more questions, please send them my way.